if we were standing around the LGBTQ water cooler, this is what we think many of us would be talking about this week. We refer to it as the hot topic of the week. Tennessee, that name came up earlier in the show, remember? Tennessee is attempting to pass a bill that would remove marriage from state laws and change them to common law unions. This is an attempt to circumvent the Supreme Court's marriage equality mandate. Well, you got to give them A for effort. So our hot topic headline of the week is, the GOP is coming after same-sex marriage. And are they going to stop there? What do y'all think?
They will not stop at same-sex marriage. I know that there's this belief that within the community, after same-sex marriage, oh, we stopped advocating for ourselves. No, there's so much more that we need. They're attacking us bit by bit. They're starting with children, specifically trans females, and they're attacking them. And then they're coming for same-sex marriage, and they're going to continue until they essentially bulldoze us over. Why? I don't know. I'm kind of on that Mariah Carey, why are you so obsessed with me moment. What is going on?
I love that you incorporated Mariah Carey in the conversation.
Are you sure you're not a gay man?
Yes, I was going to say.
So recently, when we reported something similar to this on Queer News Tonight, somebody commented on the YouTube saying that she was a Republican lesbian from Boston and that she blames it all on our community for accepting the T into the LGB. We're all minorities. If we don't stand together, we do not have the numbers for anybody to care. If we don't represent the most minority part of our community, we're not a community. So sorry, Miss Republican Lesbian, you've got it wrong. They're after you, not just the T, and it's not because of the T, it's because of you.
I'm curious, I won't presume to say what your statuses are. I know David is defined as single, and I know you're defined as single. But many of the circle, the only reason I refer to you is because both of you are older than me. And so it's a situation where shady, right, it was a little shady. My circle of friends frequently, more often than not, go basically, and I'm summarizing, and I'm taking liberty in this summarizing, but say, we got gay marriage in 2015. We're pretty much good now. There's nothing else we need. And what's happening here is that assumption is very flawed.
Yes.
Because they are trying to figure out ways, whether to win elections, whether their politics, whether their ideology, whether their religion, come back to that again. They're trying to refigure out how to recoup what's happened in the last 7 years. What do y'all think about that? We are not stable in what we think is stable.
Yes. Well, and a lot of the people that think they're fine live in areas that are protected, like Miss Lesbian in Boston. Because a lot of the country, it's still legal to discriminate for housing if you're LGBT. And the Equality Act, until it passes, is the only thing that's going to put a permanent stop to that. But Congress doesn't want to pass that. And so you'll get people complaining about dictating policy from the judge bench. But until Congress gets off their asses and passes the Equality Act, that's the only way to preserve it.
Which they're not going to do.
They're not going to.
Yeah. Nope.
And we have to remember, the world is not South Florida. People growing up in Tennessee and in Alabama and in the heartland and stuff where things are way more rural and there's a completely different set of traditions and stuff, are not living in Milton Manors and who grow up gay there. There are a lot of people who still resent the fact that gay marriage ever passed.
That's an interesting point, and Dan, I want to fold you in on this because I don't know the Bureau's decision-making. Dan Rios, one of the top tourism voices in America for Miami-Dade Convention and Visitors Bureau for Miami-Dade County and Miami Beaches. Is that a function that y'all think about at tourism in Miami-Dade County, that our inclusiveness is a strength in our marketing of tourism, or does that not come up in
100%.
And explain that to us.
Well, that's what we have to focus on now. I mean, we are one of the largest LGBTQ communities in the country, if not the world. And we talk about privilege. All of us around this table live here, and we have a certain privilege because we can be ourselves. And a lot of the people that you mentioned in Tennessee do not have that privilege. And these are the people that we need to stand up for. And I am actually more concerned about people within the community that just don't get that. I have people that are my peers, not professionally, but in my community, that say, why does everything have to be about trans? It's like, because this is part of our dialogue, it's part of our community, and that to me is much more concerning.
Exactly. If we're not one community, then what are we? And that, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why I don't want to say it's easy to bait the hook when it comes to the queer community, but that makes it easier. If we're not one community, then we won't be able to get the change that's needed. We won't be able to do the things that need to be done. We need to be cohesive and understand that, to Miss Boston Lesbian Republican, trans individuals are a part of the LGBTQ plus community, point blank period. And we need to support them, and we need to make sure they have protection.
I have to take the opportunity. We constantly point out, I get the knock all the time, wait, this is so one-sided in your conversations coming out of your voice. Believe me, if you have representation voice in LGBT that is more conservative, the Republican point of view, what we're watching, we want you to come on Queer News Tonight, and we want you to come on It's Happening Out. We give you the open invitation of this platform to talk about it because we think conversation is valuable for all of us. The problem is we can't get you to come out and publicly say the things, these kind of things that we're seeing. One last question related to this hot topic. I'm curious, do y'all think it's going to get better before it gets worse, or it's going to get much, much worse?
It's going to get much worse. That's sadly the way that things go. Maybe in Florida, in spaces where we have a much larger community, like you were mentioning earlier, Dan, it will get better. But in places where there are smaller communities like Tennessee of queer folks, that it won't get better for them, and those are the folks that we also have to fight for. It's not just us here, but us as a community, as a nation.
Yeah. What do y'all think?
I think it's going to get much worse before it gets better, but I do think it's getting better. National polls show that the straight community majority accepts us, supports us, and I think it's going to take it getting really, really terrible in a lot of places before our allies start fighting for us instead of just saying they support us. But I think they will.
Thoughts? Better? Worse?
I agree with you. I was thinking that exactly. I think ultimately this strategy of beginning to villainize LGBTQ+, I think is going to end up backfiring eventually, because the majority of public sentiment is on our side. And I think when they see, again, it's rhetoric filled with hate. That is not what the majority of Americans want for their future. So this effort will make a surge, and then I agree, it'll get to a point that it's so ugly that it'll then.
I do want to draw the comparison to Hungary and what we just saw at their elections. Viktor Orban got reelected. However, his referendum to ban homosexuality was defeated, overwhelmingly defeated at the same time, because the rhetoric just got too much for the people.
One last thought that I make a comparison on, and I try not to live in the hyperbole of this illustration, but I am a student of history, and I see moments of what we're watching now for LGBT historically. In 1934, a very radical conservative party started to preach a hateful message in Germany, and they othered a group, which was Jewish. And they started to refine that message in 35. They got the message really refined in 36. And by 37, they had convinced the majority of Germans, principally launched in Berlin, that all of your problems were because of them. And they just told the story over and over and over again. And I see so many parallels today of what they're saying about LGBT, about trans, about what's going on in the schools, about taking parental choice away. There's no parental choice being taken away on elementary sexual education because it doesn't exist. The truth doesn't matter. And it just seems to me, to the point that all of you made, that it's going to get worse. That historical example is the proof of that. Because 1937 came along, Adolf Hitler was able to come to power, and the Nazi Party then began to take rights away, and the political structure began to wash away, and what was a democratic society in the 1930s ended. And that led to World War II, and that led to a Holocaust, and that led to the greatest disaster in German history. And I can't help but wonder if we're not watching something similar going on here in America. We will watch this closely and talk about it frequently. It's why we think it's a hot topic at It's Happening Out. LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+